start with a little bit of a kind of a rehash, rerun. What would we call it? And the way I thought we could do it is that each of you who were there could share something that you think worth passing on. We'll see what there is. Okay? How's that? Is that okay? Good. So anybody want to kick this off and share something that seems important for the people who missed it to hear?
For me, what was important was that we will approach skandhas as a practice, not as an intellectual concept, but as a practice to investigate the self.
Thank you.
And we talked about experiencing the present moment with our senses and, all of our senses. And we talked about that practice and sitting with the moment, experiencing through our physical body in all of the ways.
Two things for me. First was your mention, Ken, about pay attention and notice the form of a moment. So I was trying to understand what it is. As you said, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4.5 pages of notes for these 7 days, point-wise. So those are mainly for myself, understand until you want me to share a particular one. So that was one thing. So I was trying to understand what was meant by that. And apart from that, something else which was, you did not say directly, but what I kind of related with my understanding, that life as such is apparently meaningless. You talked about the formless. So in that sense would be apparently meaningless. And yet that is the most important meaning of this life. That is a way I interpret the form and the formlessness in terms of the meaning and the meaninglessness.
Thank you.
That reminds me of when we talked about emptiness, and that emptiness is really not very empty, but very empty at the same time. And it's just, you let it grow and grow. And I've been sitting with that a lot this week.
I think it's very sort of dry or formal, but I still keep going back to what you introduced us to, or maybe people are familiar with Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, doing deep prajna paramita, perceived the emptiness of all 5 conditions and was freed of pain. That's sort of an invitation.
What sat with me was the idea of experience as a condition. And that really kind of touched me quite deeply. And also the invitation to pause, not just to see the form, but to pause. So the pausing itself, in a way, was seeing the form or the formless. And I used that a lot during the week to just, reshape. Well, it was about coming into a relationship with the formless and form, or the formless as it shapes itself and disappears again, I guess is the best way of saying.
For me, it was interesting to hear that that this can be a totally separate practice other than meditating. That I can incorporate something else if it pulls me. So I'm open ears to it.
Okay? So let me just add a couple of reiterations. That the skandhas are the 5 conditions. And that the first one is form. And that we started with form this week. And in Buddhist psychology, a little different than Western psychology, where there are 5 senses. Buddhism has 6 senses. So to sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, they add another sense organ, the brain. So when we look at form, we look not only at our 5 Western senses, but at the thought that's occurring. And that the exercise for the week was to, with a journal for the course, to make notes on the form of a moment. What were you smelling? What were you seeing? What were you thinking? What were your body sensations? What was the taste? What did you hear? And it will start today with a go-round where everybody shares one form, one moment, the form of one moment in their week. If we, if you got knocked out by Zoom last week, you'll have time to catch up, because doing the form for a week, form we're going to do every day for the whole course. We're going to add other skandhas. So you'll get a chance to catch up on form. Okay? So we're going to go around and as you know, and the plan is we're going to start every week this way with a go round and a sharing of form. Sharing, sharing a moment. This week, the form.
So shall I start off?
Wonderful.
So here it is just autumn starting, and as we say, the Durga Pujas. So it's a slight cool breeze which has started in the early mornings, heralding autumn, and which will then go into or move into winter. So that was the start of a day. That was the moment for me.
So in that moment, what sounds were you hearing?
The slight rustle of the leaves outside my window, the birds chirping in the morning, the feel of the coolness coming in through the window.
Here's like a caution. We tend to add stories.
Right.
And we're gonna look at that in the last week. We're gonna focus finally on the stories that we're adding. So when we look at sound, and this is very hard, like there's more story getting added. There's like you're hearing chirping. You're adding birds. It's birds chirping. And then there's more story. More context that's being added.
Right.
What you want to do in the moment of form is not to fill in the story yet. To stay as close as you can to the sense, to the physicality. And it's very hard. There was I think it's John Cage who advised people in listening to music to listen to the silence between the notes, which is a very Buddhist listening instruction. It's the sound version of my favorite. There's a really great book. This is, I shouldn't be interrupting the go around. I'm getting carried away with myself. The best book I know on how to see is it's called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, something like that. And like the key instruction is very much like Cage's instruction for listening to music, listening to the silence. They say when, like, if you're trying to draw a picture of a chair, don't draw the chair, draw the space around the chair. Then you really see with your eyes, not with your brain. Not with your thinking. And it's hard. I can't do it. I work at it. It's hard for me to stop my brain from racing too far, from racing ahead, I'm meditating in the morning. I hear sounds and I'm identifying, the vehicle that's driving by. Car, truck, bus. That's more than listening. What am I hearing? What we want to work at each day when we look at a moment is really try to be aware of what the physical sensations are. Okay? Very hard. Don't expect to master this in 6 weeks. This is not, don't forget, this is not, in 6 weeks, you're going to be Avalokiteshvara. This is let's get started. Okay? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, thank you. Because now I realize that I was trying to see, or rather put stories to the form a lot more. In the context of what you said, there is another experience. It happens once in a while. In the morning, I stay by myself. So in the morning, once in a while, what happens is I'm at the breakfast table. Just before starting my food, when I'm sitting there, there's a point of vacantness. Where my mind does not try to latch on to a particular thing. Then it does. But just that very short moment is there when it is just that emptiness. But the moment I categorize it as emptiness, naturally there's something else, that thought that follows on. The story comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Probably you're trying to lead me to something like that.
And at least a technique. That's what this Ox class is a training in technique, which may be helpful in arriving uh, you know, and sometimes it's easier or first to notice what you don't notice. You know, sight and sound come to me fast. Body sensations come pretty quick after that. Taste and touch, I have to pause for smell and taste. And they're not my strong senses, you know, it's like, I'm glad I didn't try to become a chef.
Um,
David?
I live on a hill in what used to be a bungalow colony. So there are all these different structures, 19 different apartments, and I live in an old 100-year-old house on the 3rd floor. And one morning I stood at my living room window looking out the window, and I caught this moment where I was gazing at this garage structure that serves the whole community. But what I saw, I didn't name it as a garage. I saw the pattern of the bricks, the multicolored pattern of the bricks, and just kind of enjoyed this beautiful painting. It was a visual delight to see these colors, and I for me that was a moment where I didn't step into, oh, I'm looking at the garage and the story or naming. It was just the colors. It was just the variety of brick, and that was a kind of a fresh aha. It was a nice moment.
Here's a trick that I learned from my father. My father was a painter, oil paintings. And to see his painting, he would step back and he'd hold up his thumb like this, you know, and he would focus on his thumb so that the painting went out of focus. You know, and then he could see the colors and shapes rather than the idea.
I really like that, and what I love to do is I play flutes, and I'll stand in front of a painting and improvise flute into the painting. So I'm not looking at the painting to identify. I'm allowing myself to be drawn into the colors and all through somehow improvising what I see, feel through the flute, and it takes me deeper into the painting.
Yes. Can you do it the other way around? Like I guess the most famous version of that, or the one that I know, you know, Ravel's pictures at an exhibition. So he wrote these series of kind of movement things, not really movements, but it's like it's different pictures as he's going through the exhibition. And I've often wondered, like, could you reverse that? Can you get those pictures by listening to his music? What was he looking at?
I've had one experience like that. When I lived in New Mexico, Down the road was these two mountains called Moon and Sun Mountain that I love to walk a lot. And nearby, there was a neighbor who's an indigenous Native American composer. And we became friends, and Lewis invited me to his house one day. And he didn't say much. He just invited me into his studio. He put headphones on my head and he said, listen. And it brought me to tears. I could hear, no, well, I was listening to his music, but I was seeing Moon Mountain and Sun Mountain, and that's what he was doing. He was conveying these mountains that were in his neighborhood that we both, in our different ways, really enjoyed.
We'll experiment with that
Mm.
as we move along, probably not this week. Maybe by a couple of weeks, we'll try that as we go around and do the sharing, that you share the form without telling us what it is you're looking at first. Just, you know, it's like what I'm seeing is a pattern of small rectangles kind of thing. That's some larger rectangles. Something about the colors. What you're hearing is. I mean, we sort of blur into the conceptual as soon as we put a thing in words, right? So when you say chirping, it's sort of a dead giveaway that it's a bird, because we don't describe cars as chirping. But we'll try not doing introductions to the moment and just share the moment. Today you can ease into it. David, what else was in that moment? What was your body sensation, for instance?
Well, I think I'm kind of, at this point, I'm already in my head, I'm intellectualizing. But there was a hint for me of no separation.
Too much.
Yeah. I mean, it was just
Do it this week when you're observing moments this week. Do a body scan. Familiar with that?
Yes.
Like what do you just control the whole body? It's and we don't usually do this. But pay attention. Like if you're sitting in a chair right now, you can check this out. Because you can feel the chair with some parts of your body. You're not feeling the chair with your whole body. Which parts of your body are feeling the chair? Feel the pressure. Notice, whether your skin is feeling warm or cold. I'm inside and I turned the heat up a little bit this morning. I haven't had it up very many days yet this year. And it's warm. If I was doing this sitting out on the deck, it would be chilly today in New York. You notice that.
Would you consider, I mean, when I look back in that first moment of gazing out the window, I don't know if these are feelings, but there was quiet curiosity.
Quiet. quiet is the, no, is there no sound? That's, you want to pause and you say quiet. Quiet is an abstraction. Uh, you know, up until Monet, everybody thought water was, like the water in the lake was blue. Uh, you know, and Monet saw all these colors. People thought he was out of his mind. This was crazy. Now everybody sees like Monet. Everybody goes into a park and sees all these colors in the water. People used to think that leaves on the tree were green. We gotta learn to pay attention.
I got a question.
No questions yet. We're gonna go around and everybody's gonna share. And then we'll do a round of questions and then we'll prep for next week. Okay? Everybody's learning. This is not easy. It's just simple.
I'll go next, Ken, if you like.
Sure.
So I live in Florida, and it is getting darker here, as in most of the eastern seaboard, but it's not getting any cooler. But I go out earlier for my walk, and the last 10 minutes of the walk, I do it very, very slowly, meditation walk, so to speak. And I was sweating profusely, and I could feel the sweat on my body, and my body like regulating itself so it could continue to walk.
There's story there.
But I physically felt the sweat.
Yes. So one of the, get as detailed as you can, did you feel, where on your body did you feel it?
All over my chest.
Good. Do you notice the difference between feeling it on my chest, feeling sweat on my chest, and feeling it all over?
100%. I could feel it most, and I could also, not to get personal, but I could feel it around the waistband of my underwear. Of course, that's elastic. So that was really sweaty there. I'll stop there. Two other points, though. John famously said that without the stops in the music, you won't hear the music. And the other thing is what your father was doing, I do as a photographer, I do with my eyes, I squint like that, and I just see shapes. So I see like outlines, it's the squinting.
Yes. So it's interesting, as I look around the room here, some of us have pushed the Zoom button that blurs our background, and some of us haven't. Stephen, what were you hearing?
I could actually feel the pulsating of my heart because I walk fast, and then when I slow up, I could feel the steadiness of the breathing. I'm pretty in tune with my body. Having had a series of medical conditions, I've learned I really listen to my body, or I try to. The body's always telling you something. The mind wants to ignore it. Oh, I'm not having a heart attack.
Not too much theorizing. Notice though, and it's worth noticing for each of us, which of our senses are like kind of primary for us and which are secondary?
That's a very easy one for me. You know which one it is, right? Seeing, without doubt.
But apparently also feeling, this body sensation,
Oh
feeling
yeah.
is important for you. And I didn't know that before, and I've known you a while.
Mm.
You know, it was a shock. It was just like it was a shock to me. There was such a struggle, probably mostly still is, to identify, you know, in most situations, smell or taste. I mean, there's some situations where it stands out, but others not. Who wants to go next?
Thank you.
I'll go next. I chose smell because it's the most difficult sense for me to really come into relationship with. So I thought it would be the most challenging and fresh, so that's why I chose it. And
You're mute. Robin, you're mute.
why am I mute?
You're okay now.
Am I muted?
No, you're good now.
Oh,
Good
good. Okay, I chose smell because I'm in Rome, so visuals just wasn't a go for me. It's just too strong here. So I chose smell because I thought it would be the most fresh for me, and it's the most challenging also. And as soon as I chose it, I could feel my nose wanting to go out to reach smells. It was really strong. And I just noticed it, and then I sat back and I thought, oh, let's just see what happens if I receive the smells rather than go after them. And there suddenly were so many smells, and it felt like my whole body was smelling. That's what it felt like. And there were so many smells that it was incredibly rich. Can't identify them. They were just like popping everywhere, popping. That was the sensation of smells popping. I've never noticed there were so many smells. And I noticed how strongly it was connected to my emotions and where my emotions kicked in. And I also noticed that even talking to you now, I'm very aware of just the smells of air. I've noticed smells of air. Air has all this layering. So I was very aware of the emotional and impetus to act, though I didn't act on it, but I could feel like my whole body wanted to go into some sort of active response. So that was really strong for me. And one incident kind of encapsulated everything. I was in a restaurant, and I got this toast with some tomatoes. That's what I ordered. And I could feel the whole body. There was a sort of opening and closing that happens with smell, which I had noticed. And so this kind of expansion on the perceived something, on something that was waiting for something. And so there was this kind of thing that happened. And then 3 people around me started smoking. It's Italy.
Mm.
Wow. And I don't think I could feel that everything just closed down, it was so aversive. And I could feel it was so quick, I couldn't even catch my judgments. They were that quick. So that was just an interesting offshoot. Anyway, that was my experience with smell.
Did you try in any moment to do the other forms?
Yeah, well, the other forms for me are very easy. Like sound. I'm primary visual and sound and sensation. I do a lot of focusing, so I'm very aware of sensation in the body, and I have a bad back. So that's really attuned me to strong sensations in the body, where I'll feel my feet on the ground a lot, or I'll feel the pebbles, I'll feel the sensations of contact and touch and roughness and warmth and those sorts of things.
So what you want to do, and we'll talk more about this at the end, but what you want to do is you want to pick one moment and get the whole form of that moment, because we're going to build it up.
That's
from
hard with
form.
smell. It's very hard with smell.
Yes, but you want to get not just the smell. You want to notice in one moment the ingredients of your experience. So there's the smell and the body sensation, what you're experiencing, sight, with sound, with taste, and what your brain is.
I was very aware of what my brain wanted to do. It was really interesting in a sensory way, not in a thinking way, but in a sensory way.
Yes. You want to share what that brain thought was? The brain sensation?
It was very easy when the smoke came.
Yes. What was it?
Get me out of here.
Yeah.
Escape.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Who's next?
I can go next. So the ingredients of the moment: sight, white floor and walls; touch, cold floor touching my soles, cold water running over my hands; sound, the murmur of water; taste, saliva in my mouth; smell, no particular feeling, just freshness of the air in my nostrils; mind, thinking of a notebook that I am supposed to dedicate to this exercise.
Good. Very good. It's the challenge as you work with this, and it's very hard, is to notice how quickly we use this shorthand to go from the sensation, the form. Be careful with my words. That we go from the form to a label.
Mm-hmm. It's unavoidable in a way.
But if we notice it, so when we say the taste of saliva, and you may not be able to do anything with it today, maybe tomorrow, but to pause for a second to see if you can identify the pre-label experience at all. That there is something, there's something that you're tasting that your brain is labeling saliva, and it doesn't label everything saliva. How does your brain know saliva? Well, it could be, maybe it has nothing to do with taste. Maybe it's just a deduction,
Mm-hmm.
or is it an induction? I don't know. Maybe, your brain has just figured out that this must be what you're tasting. It's a little bit like, and it's easier to talk about for me with seeing, that there's a tendency, if we want to draw a picture of a cow, we draw a cow with 4 legs that are the same length. because we know that cows have legs that are the same length, otherwise they would fall over. Or chairs. But that's not what we see. You know, that's our brain saying chairs have legs, 4 legs the same length. What we see is the ones the legs closest to us are longer. The legs further away are shorter. It's easier for me to step back from the conceptual. Harder for me, much harder for me, maybe impossible for me to do it with. I don't know, Adam, I could get any further than you got. What's the taste of saliva? I can get some of the feeling, like Robin. I know what saliva feels like. And my dentist tells me it's a good thing I'm a big salivator. I hate it. You know, I think I worry, you know, because I'm drooling. And I feel myself drooling in bed at night. Pillow is wet, but my dentist says this is very good because old people with dry mouth, that's a very bad condition. But I don't know what it tastes like. John, that's good. I've been playing with this for 30 years. It's still very much a learning process. So this is good for me to play with it with you, pushes me a little. Who else?
I could go.
Good.
So I was sitting in my living room and visually I saw certain objects, like square,
No.
large square objects.
Okay, go ahead. Square. You saw squares.
Yeah, I saw large square object. I saw more than one large square object. I
Object,
saw.
listen, you hear? Object is already a thought. Objects are not what you're seeing. That's not the visual sensation. Squares, you know, square shapes. You know, the brain is adding, that's like saliva, right? Brain is adding, it's an object. Go ahead.
I saw furry, bushy things. I saw a rounded, edgy object. I saw an elongated, tubular object. I'm saying object again. Long tubular thing below me. That was this. I did a lot of the sight. Sound was there are many sounds while I'm in my apartment, so I heard all kinds of sounds. Grumbling sounds, clicking and clacking. There are a lot of like cars passing by and other things, so I could hear all sorts of stuff along with other things. A humming sound. That was more the refrigerator, but it's like I'm going there. I'm going right there, you know?
You don't have to explain them.
Yeah. The one thing I found easy to not explain was my smell. But maybe because I really only smelled one or two things, like a staleness in the air, you know? And the same thing with taste. I just tasted, you know, it was like a blandness, you know? Yeah. And that's about it.
What was there a thought? What's your brain doing?
At the time, the thought was edginess. I was edgy at the moment.
That's not quite the thought. That's like a attempt to summarize. Uh, Robin gave us a good example of a thought in a moment, you know? Like, get me out of here.
Ah. And that's the mind. That's the sixth sense.
That's the brain.
That's the brain. Okay.
When you meditate, if you've been meditating for a while, you may be used to noticing the brain. That's, you know, Zen people call it the monkey mind, you know. What's the chatter? And it's very fast, you know. It's not like a 15 well, moments don't last that long. Moments don't last 15 minutes, or rarely do. I don't remember what his calculation was. Mayuzumi Roshi had some sort of number, somewhere in the billions, I guess, of the number of moments that occur in the day. Moments are fast. You know, so one of the sort of brain things that will come up at least in some moments for most of us while we're meditating goes something like, "Will I ever be enlightened?" Sometimes it's, "Will this period ever end?" Notice those. That's the brain. That's the brain as a, you know, as a kind of sense organ here.
Like right now, I'm feeling sleepy. Is that my brain? Is that my brain?
No. Brain might be, I want to go to bed, I want to lie down.
Oh.
But, you know, I can't, you know, it's not the summary of the experience. That your kind of summary of the experience may very well be the label that you put on the moment. You may call this experience that you're having sleepy. You may call it bored. You may call it restless. That's a label. You know, what are you seeing? What are you feeling with your body? What are you smelling? What are you hearing? What are you tasting? What thought is in your brain? Pay attention. This is, if you skip this part and you live in the world of your labels, here's the news. You will not be freed from pain. If you live in the world of your labels, you will be miserable. Maybe not today, but any day now.
You know, I notice when I look at a painting, part of the reason I like looking at paintings is that all the colors and everything that's going on kind of jumps at me when I gaze at it. And then it brings up emotions. It feels really good.
Too much talk for now. Then other people need to share their moment.
I'll go. Um, touching my father's cold hands and kissing his forehead for the last time. His body is there, but the essence of him, his soul is departed. Making space for my mom to do the same, sensing she'd rather be with him in death. Touching his casket for the last time as the bagpiper's notes of amazing grace are swallowed by the clouds.
So some of that is form, some of it's story.
It felt more like story.
Yeah. You're going to get better at this. Do it every day. I don't want to put you on the spot. Answer for yourself. How many days this week did I do the exercise? You know, did you do it seven times? You know, this is, I don't know, did you take music lessons as a kid? This is like, you know, when the music teacher says, how many times this week did you practice? You know, and when my answer is once, just a half hour before the lesson, because I didn't want to not practice at all, I'm probably not going to get very good at this thing. You will get better at it if you practice. The chances are that if you don't practice, you won't get any better at it. You know, there might be a way of doing this course, which is something like the way koan study is sometimes done in Zen practice, that you don't get to go on to the next koan until you have some indication of mastery or something with the koan you're working on. You know, and a way of doing this, you know, might be, you know, a way of structuring this class might be to say, you don't go on to sensation until you get good, get fairly proficient at form. This is the music teacher's dilemma, right? So it's like, you want me to practice the scales. I want to play songs. And how do you balance that? Because if you tell me I can't play any songs until I master the scales, I'm probably going to quit. So you got to let me play some songs. And give me some easy songs to play. Practice. Do the, you know, so it's every day you're doing the form. You pick a moment. I encourage you in the beginning, as I did, to do some easy moments. And it's brave to do difficult moments. David, you took on a really difficult moment. And when you take on a really difficult moment, it's could be very valuable to look at it. And it could also be very hard to see the form.
So where you heard more story and less form, how might my experience there, which was mostly about touch, how would it have looked different to play the scale the right way?
Uh, when you notice the story starting, stop. On touch, I would do the body scan, just to stay with the touch.
Mm.
Like what are my feet? What am I feeling in my feet right now? Uh, uh, what am I feeling in my stomach? Is it cold in here?
Mm.
What? Uh, really noticing when you
Now, are we rewriting it down to report back or
Yes.
just for its own sake? Like, do I need to write anything at all? Can I just do it in the future?
Oh, you got to write.
Oh.
Yes, it's a course. So, otherwise, what you remember, this is totally unreliable. Right. I mean, if you've ever done dream work, you got to write down the dream. What you remember of the dream 3 days later has very little to do with the dream, and it's a wonderful, that discrepancy can be a wonderful tool. Tell me the dream first. Now look at your notes and see what you've changed, what you've left out.
But
That's,
outside of the course, like when I'm doing this on my own and the course is over, do I need to be writing it down?
I think so.
Okay.
Uh, at least until you're really noticing. It helps to at least have a partner you're working with, if not a teacher, who will check you on your noticings, because you're gonna lapse into your summary concepts of your experience, and it's wildly unreliable. How did it turn out that the ancient Egyptians only saw people in profile? How did it work out that in this huge chunk, at least, of medieval European history, they thought that babies looked like small adults? Really, go into like any museum of art. Go to those old pictures of the Madonna and Child, and there's this little man standing in Mary's lap. It's hysterical.
So
They
this
didn't see that. That's what they thought. There weren't, children in those age, in that time, didn't really look like little adults with adult proportioned bodies. How did they see that?
So when I write it down, it's for somebody to read it so that they can see, to check my inaccuracies so that I can correct myself. Is that right?
I don't know. This is, you want to learn to play the piano? You gotta practice the scales.
Huh.
No, I don't know that that's true. My handle on this, and we're gonna have to move ahead soon, but this is okay. We're sort of morphing into questions here. And we'll get back in case, I don't know if everybody's gotten to go yet. This is not an easy practice. Everybody chants the Heart Sutra in Buddhist places all over the world. And everybody chants that line, Avalokiteshvara, doing deep prajna paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five conditions and was freed from pain. And everybody thinks that's wonderful, and nobody has any idea how do you go about perceiving the emptiness of all five conditions? And I'm sure there's some answers to that other than Bernie's, which was this ox class. Here's a set of exercises which can help you learn to perceive the emptiness of all five conditions. Is there another way? I'm sure there's other ways. I just don't know what they are. Who hasn't gone? Go ahead, Alana.
Okay. So I noticed what you mentioned about how the moments pass. And this was a very specific moment because already it had changed. And we were on to a new moment, and that's a whole new set of things to write. So I really just let it fall out. And now notice there are some things that are a little labely, but let's see. Bright light, buzzing vibrations, cold air, damp, soft earth, heavy shoulders, rich scent, shallow breath, sinking toes, knees locked, itching ankles, bitter warm sip, green, yellow, blue, white, brown, anticipation of being found. It rhymed at the end.
The moment that got in your reporting, which that's just like the reporting moment is a different moment than the moment that you're reporting about, kind of thing, but in the reporting moment, there was what was it about the loam, or there was something that was already conceptual. There was something you were feeling. I think with my guess is with your feet, but I don't know.
Yes, I was just kind of standing. I had stepped from a hard surface into the grass and had a sip of coffee because you mentioned your wine. And I just sort of tried to take in the moment.
Yes.
And then as soon as I had the anticipation of the next thing, that's when the moment ended and I knew, okay, it's gone.
One of the gifts of this practice, and you're seeing it, is how short moments are. The part of our pain is that we keep moments going.
Yeah.
Mostly these moments are really the moments of the form, which is the moment, is very brief. we keep it going with our stories. One of Jishu's instructions was, if you let go of the story, like try to stay angry without the story. Just this, in a moment, feel the physicality, even what's in your brain, like get me out of this place or whatever it is. Without the story, which might be, these people are so inconsiderate, smoking without being concerned about other diners and all this kind of stuff. The moment ends, another moment happens. They happen so fast. If we're trying to notice them, we can be upset. I wish this moment lasted longer so I had time to write it down. It's like, Stephen, you missed the photograph. The moment's over. The sun shifted, a cloud moved, whatever it is, it's gone.
Exactly. You find yourself grasping onto the moment before you get a little distracted by the next, and then so forth.
And even that, just being aware of your grasping onto moments will reduce the pain.
But then couldn't I just be grasping to the grasping if I'm sitting there paying attention to it?
I can't do this philosophy, Joe. Come on, stop.
All right.
You need a philosophy teacher who wants to play with that. See the thing. For me, is that this Zen practice is very experiential. That doesn't mean that one couldn't have very interesting, if one was interested, have very interesting philosophical discussions about Zen practice. You could probably have psychology discussions about Zen practice. Why does meditation work? Bernie, it's not, it's not your problem. Your problem is to do the practice. Let the practice worry about how it works. Engu, you're driving. Can you share? Do you want to share? Don't have to, of course. Probably not. Anybody else? Everybody go? Who wants to? Oh, Catherine. You're mute. Please unmute. You're still mute. There you go. No, I'm not hearing you. Anybody hearing Catherine? Try again. Catherine, try saying something. I think your microphone must be off. It's not muted.
Perhaps you could just log off and log in again. That helps the problem. Yeah. Let's see.
I feel like I should start talking about sensation. So yeah, for the coming week, you're basically going to do the same thing again, which is every day in a notebook, write down your observation of a moment, at least one moment a day. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, feel, thought. And that's the form. And for this week, you're going to add sensation. And Bernie's prompt for sensation is to notice whether this moment is positive, negative, or neutral. Does that make sense? Just notice the feeling, positive, negative, neutral.
Question, if I'm feeling pain in my big toe, it seems that is feeling pain necessarily negative?
Is that you're asking philosophically? No.
Oh, well,
Pain is a label. You know, what you find that you label as painful may be the same things that I label as painful, but they may not be.
Could I just add something
Sure.
and you could respond? I was driving my car back. It happens once in a while, but today I was driving my car back. A mosquito in the car, or rather, a sting in the leg. Noticed it while driving. Realized its tongue. That moment passed.
Mhm.
A few moments later, I somehow scanned again and I found that sensation had changed.
Mhm. Mhm.
It did not feel either positive or negative. It was a neutral scanning.
Okay. But you
And the
don't,
label was the mosquito sting. The label of the story was a mosquito sting.
if if you try to think it out in advance, like, let's say, I would try, if David asked me, is a pain in your big toe, is that positive, negative, or neutral? I could only do this thing conceptually, right? I have to see in the moment of pain, where, where I describe what my toe is feeling, what that feeling is. And I don't know what the feeling is till I experience it. I mean, I may remember something, but otherwise I don't know what it is. But in that moment, this moment that I'm noticing for the exercise, not pain in the toe in general, in this moment, was it positive, negative, or neutral?
I'm lost here
Sorry.
because that immediately it becomes conceptual.
Yes. So what's that moment? That moment, what are you feeling? You can't figure it out. Robin had a moment in the restaurant which sounded negative when she said, "Get me out of here." That was probably, my guess is that was a negative moment, but the moment before that might not have been. The moment right after that might not have been. I don't know. I'm guessing that when her brain said, "Get me out of here," that was not an expression of positivity.
I've got a question because traditionally I knew this as pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. What's the difference? What's the reason behind the choice of positive and negative rather than pleasant and unpleasant?
I don't know. I think I think I'll make a guess. I think that Bernie was trying to get below any judgment. Just raw feeling.
I'll throw this into the mix. It could be positive and negative. Ouch, my toe hurts. That's negative, probably, if I'm guessing. But then you look down at your toe and you see it's infected. So that's positive. You go to the doctor and get it taken care of.
A lot of judgments here. Look, let me use an different example of you're in the gym doing some sort of resistance exercise. I think you probably go through a gamut of sensations. Sometimes the pumping feeling feels positive. Other moments it feels negative. I'm not sure. I guess I'm not sure if the positive is pleasant or unpleasant. To me, adds a level of judgment. I mean, it's like getting to the gym and working out at that pleasant, unpleasant level. It may be all pleasant. I don't know. But there are moments in which I'm straining to lift the weight. which I don't enjoy. But I don't know whether it makes a big deal, whether you call it negative or unpleasant. It's words anyway.
I do a certain set of stretching exercises each day, and recently I added what are they called? Sit-ups or crunches, stomach crunches. I haven't done that in a long time. And as soon as I immediately put my hand behind and tried to come up, the pain was clearly negative. I mean, it was, and I lived with the consequences for a few days. So that was an easy one for me. It was not positive.
Just, I mean, what you want to do in this week in adding this on is try not to get caught up in the judgments. Because we have all this other stuff going on, which we tend to get lost in. It's like no pain, no gain, and all this stuff. It's like don't get involved in an argument with yourself yet. Just notice your reaction. What's the sensation?
The reason why I'm laughing is right now, beside this laptop, I've got a set of scripts waiting in a file. Negative.
And now the sensation is different than touch, I would think, right?
Yeah. Sensation refers in this not to the form, but to positive, negative, or neutral.
I was at a conference this morning, and I had a sensation that was negative. And it happened because of a set of stuff occurring.
No, don't rush to the explanation.
Okay.
You're explaining the sensation. You're a big theorizer, philosopher type guy. Just notice the sensation.
The sensation was negative.
Good, period.
Ken, I wonder about this. Do you actually have a neutral anything?
What?
I wonder about this. Can you actually have a neutral anything?
I
think less now than I used to. Before this meeting, I put a load of wash in the washing machine. There was a time in my life that doing things like that were negatives. There were things that had to be done, I guess, so I was doing it, but I felt negative about it. I guess it was maybe a maturity thing that I came to accept that these were, like kind of maintenance chores that I had to do, and they weren't positive, they weren't negative, just neutral. It's just I did it. It wasn't positive, and it wasn't negative. It was just now I feel good about doing it.
Why?
Maybe it's a gift of aging. maybe part of what I smile about as I carry the basket down to the basement is how much longer will I be able to do this? And it's a positive. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow my toe will be aching, and taking the basket of wash to the basement will be a negative. I don't know. Today was kind of positive.
I think that's the thing about negative and positive. It's very fluid, and we cling to the positive more than someplace neutral.
Well, look, the first step. Yeah, look, I think one of the things that you could decide to do as you become aware is that if you notice, and we'll get to this a good deal more in a couple of weeks, I think, but as you notice that you're doing things that are negatives for you, you may want to make some changes.
Now, I got a question with this skandhas, the way we're doing it. We set aside a certain amount of time, you know?
Take a
Now,
moment.
a moment, we sit down and experience that moment. We're not walking around, we're
Well,
settled in, right?
I'm not telling you whether to sit down or not.
Okay.
You're deciding to notice a moment. You're making a reminder to yourself. I don't know, you put a rubber band around your wrist or something, so you remember to notice a moment today. And you notice a moment, and having noticed the moment, you pull out your little notebook and you write down your dream.
And that moment could start off that I choose to be a stressful moment, but that would be harder.
Yes.
Okay.
Probably. And this is you'll be doing this for 5 weeks, right? So you'll be doing it 35 times at least. And you can you can choose any moment you want. I would encourage you to try some easy moments in the beginning. You don't have to run before you walk. And by the end of this time, you should be able to have some experience with difficult moments. I mean, David dove right in first day out of the block into a super difficult moment. But and that's great, but you don't have to. And having done that, he could back up a little bit this week and try some easier moments. And this is an introductory course, and this is a practice for the rest of your life. Pay attention. This is a way of doing it.
And from doing this from time to time, whenever I want in my life, when I get good at this, I can get into the moment.
Right.
Could I please pipe up once again?
Yes.
Can you mention that if you notice that you are doing things that are negative for this moment, then maybe you would want to look back and see whether you want to do things differently. So regarding this, certain things in my life, certain experiences, losses and so on. So they've kind of, over the long period, not just over a moment, but over a slightly longish period, they've made me see a situation. I won't say a moment, but a situation. So I've learned to see a situation, see whether I can do something in it to, if I'm finding it negative, particularly if it's negative, to see if I can do it differently. If I cannot, then I try to accept it as it is, or else just let it pass. So, but it's not just a moment. I can't do it moment to moment. I have to do it situation by situation.
Yeah, look, one of the things that's going to get fluid as you work with this is what a moment is. And sometimes
I'll try and break it down into smaller parts and write down to the moment.
well, sometimes, at least my the Zen thing that's come to me is that for every sort of axiom, there's the opposite. And there's no answer. Sometimes it's helpful to look at things in smaller chunks. And sometimes it's helpful to look at things in bigger chunks. From the point of view of the absolute, there are no chunks. There's only flow. So whether we're breaking them up into tiny moments or big moments, that's our brain at work.
My brain is somehow configured to the summary. So a story. Yeah.
What immediately comes to mind when you say if it's negative, pay attention to that and see if, in a sense, if something could change. What popped for me is the smell of cow dung is really positive. And I would wish to include more of it in my life. But for another person, it could be very negative. And they would choose to avoid it.
Yeah, well, in the next couple of weeks, we will get much more into this. For this week, notice the form and the sensation. Just noticing. Don't go any further. Pick a moment, at least one moment every day to observe and record.